More often than not, when a player is traded and shipped out of town, it's mainly just for business reasons. Players not playing to their potential, contracts not benefiting the team anymore, or they just need a fresh start. And usually, when guys are sent to play somewhere else, the reason falls into one or more of those categories. But every so often, for various personal reasons, teams or players themselves decide that switching things up and team swapping is the best decision for everyone. In this video, I'm going to talk about 4 times that players were traded for reasons that were off-ice related, instead of just on it. And with that, here are 4 NHL players that were traded for reasons that were personal. Unfortunately for Ottawa, fans in the last few years in Canada's capital city have been riddled with drama. The owner, finances, and arena situation are among a list that keeps going on and on. But one complication that arose that certainly didn't help was the rift between Mike Hoffman and his teammate at the time, Erik Karlsson. But the dispute didn't originate allegedly between Hoffman and his previous captain, but rather between Hoffman's partner, Monica Carrick, and Karlsson's wife Melinda. According to court documents, Karlsson sought an order of protection against Carrick, who was reportedly harassing her on social media. Comments pertaining to Karlsson's stillborn son, amongst others, were what prompted Melinda to take action. But this also prompted the Senators' organization to take their own kind of action as well, as Hoffman, shortly after the news of the spat reached the media, was dealt to San Jose, who then traded him to Florida mere moments after. Possibly the most tragic of all reasons on this list, Heatley didn't leave Atlanta unscathed. As a forward after being drafted by the club 2nd overall in 2000, Heatley had an unfortunate occurrence a few years later that he'd never forget, as he, alongside teammate at the time, Dan Snyder, were involved in a car accident after spinning out of control on a 2-lane highway and hitting a fence. Heatley suffered multiple injuries that were manageable, but for Snyder, who was ejected 30 feet from the vehicle, wasn't quite as fortunate, as he passed away due to a head injury 6 days after the accident occurred. Following the crash, it was as if a dark cloud hung solemnly over Atlanta, putting a damper on the city and on Heatley as well, as he, following the lockout that lasted the entire 2004-2005 season, requested a trade from the Thrashers. And on August 23rd of 2005, a deal was made sending Heatley to Ottawa in exchange for star player Marian Hossa.
The next one is a little more difficult, and you probably heard snippets of it. We're trying to sign Jordon. We're having difficulty, and we've got a list that we may go to market on if we can't get him done. If we sign Jordon or a comparable player for that salary, we have to move a player, and the player that I've been shopping is Seguin.
One lesson here. If you want to stay on your teammate's good side, you probably want to refrain from making moves on his better half. Anyways, before Seguin got to really know, reportedly, Jordon's wife, the two joined the same team at the same time, as Jordon was dealt from Florida to the Bruins along with Greg Campbell, in exchange for Dennis Wideman. And another asset that Boston was adding to their lineup was the 2nd overall selection in Tyler Seguin. After recording a triple-point season with the Plymouth Whalers, the Bee was eager to pencil in number 91 onto the roster. But with drafting Seguin at the time, the team, along with his remarkable offensive abilities, also inherited an 18-year-old that loved to party, a lifestyle perhaps that former Playboy bunny, Tammy Horton, knew a little about. Regardless, despite nothing substantial coming to the forefront on the alleged affair, what happened not long after the Bruins captured the Cup in 2011 spoke volumes, as both players not only arrived at the same time in Beantown, but also left in relatively the same time frame. Seguin and Horton would play their final season with Boston following the lockout, but how these sequence of events unfolded later garnered even more suspicion, as Seguin was dealt to Dallas on Independence Day of 2013, exactly 1 day before free agency commenced. But even if this was a last-ditch effort to keep the forward, it didn't work, as Horton ended up signing with the Blue Jackets and leaving the East Coast for good. After being dealt to Buffalo following a strained relationship with Jets teammates and fans in Manitoba, Kane was most likely accepting of a fresh start. But it wasn't long after number 9 made his way east, it became increasingly evident that the forward had not only brought his offensive expertise to Buffalo, but also a glaring spotlight. As the few seasons he was playing in the city, Kane allegedly had an extracurricular hobby of getting in brawls at local bars. Team GM at the time, Tim Murray, seemed less than pleased concerning his take on the headlines. Whether he has done these things or not, or he's guilty of these things or not, it's not something that I like getting up in the morning and reading about, that's for sure, he says. This, paired with disputes with teammates, were most likely the top motivating factors for management to send Kane packing. And while Kane didn't exactly leave for his own personal reason, it's pretty hard to believe that this was solely for his on-ice performance.